being captured in that sort of light and having somebody build my confidence up during the session really opened my eyes to like self-love and wow, like I am different than other people because God made me this way. And, my husband loves me the way I am. And empowered and beautiful are probably the two best words that I would describe.
Welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. I'm your host, Dan Purcell, a Christian marriage and intimacy expert and coach. I'm on a mission to help couples have the best sex and most emotionally intimate marriages possible. Our episodes cover topics you've always wondered about and are packed with practical advice designed to help you take your marriage to the next level. This podcast episode you're about to hear was inspired by a conversation my wife told me about. She and some of her girlfriends were talking about boudoir photography. Now, the word boudoir is French for bedroom, and boudoir photography is usually just for women, where they get a professional photo session in near nude or being completely nude. Now, these photo settings often include sensual or provocative poses, so you get the idea that there can be a lot of meanings people have around these kinds of photos. Now, why do women get a boudoir photo session? Well, it varies, as you get to hear in this podcast episode. Sometimes women do a session as a gift for their husbands, while others do it for themselves because they like how empowering the experience makes them feel. I recall a story about a woman that did a boudoir photo shoot, and she gave the photo album to her husband as a gift. She was nervous to do the photo shoot at first, and by the way, he really liked the gift, but she liked it even more. Of the two of them, she picked up the photo album twice as often as her husband did. She loved those photos of herself because how it made her feel. My guest today is Sierra Beltran, and she is an experienced boudoir photographer from Arizona. In this podcast episode, we'll do a deep dive on boudoir photography, how it can benefit you in your marriage and what to expect, what common objections there are to having boudoir photos done, or concerns about faith and nudity and so on. We'll also talk about ways to feel more confident in your photos. We'll also talk in depth on how to do your own boudoir photography at home with a lot of fantastic DIY tips from a professional. For that, I highly recommend you use the Just Between Us app. This app encrypts everything so that you never have to worry about your intimate photos or conversations accidentally going to someone unintended. Besides, there's a feature where you can take photos now and send them later. I'm also really happy to announce that I've partnered with Every Love Intimates, one of our favorite lingerie and date night box brands, to create a DIY boudoir photo box. This box comes with everything you need for a memorable at-home boudoir experience and date night. My wife and I recently did the DIY session with the items in this box, and I was pleasantly surprised at how empowering, intimate, and special the experience was for both of us. It was a night to celebrate my wife's beauty as a whole person, and was such an aphrodisiac for me to see her inner radiance and confidence shine. And it has definitely easily become one of our top 10 most memorable date nights. And you can find the link for this and how to do it and all the information about this box in the show notes below. And thank you in advance for taking a moment to pause the podcast, open the Apple Podcasts app, and leave a review. This is a recent review I got from someone. He says, "I really enjoy listening to Dan and his guests. It gives me a lot of thoughts to consider on how I can improve my marriage by focusing on what I have control over. This has led me to be a better husband and to live more fully." Yes, that's what we're all about. Being a better husband, being a better wife. Thank you for listening. Now, if you will do what this person did, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and then if I read your review on the air, all you need to do is email support@getyourmarriageon, and I will mail you a gift as a way of saying thank you for taking the time to do this. Ready? Let's dive in and talk about boudoir photography. Sierra Beltran, welcome to the Get Your Marriage On podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I've really enjoyed our interactions preparing for this episode. We've been talking for a few weeks, and you just have this magnetic, bubbly personality that I just think is so fun and so fitting for what we're going to be talking about today.
Thank you so much. I'm like, I do my best.
You do your best being yourself. Yeah,
just me.
I want to hear about how you and your husband met.
Yeah. So My husband and I have been together since I was 15, a sophomore in high school, and he was a junior,
Uh-huh.
16. And we grew up in Illinois. There used to be this like teen dance club type deal
Uh-huh.
that him and I met at. And I actually didn't see him at all that night, but he swears he remembers like seeing me
Uh-huh.
back then. And all of a sudden, my friend and I were leaving, and he tapped me on my shoulder, and I was like, "The heck?"
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
when he's like, "Can I have your number?" And I'm like, I'm like this 15-year-old girl. I'm like, "Oh, sure." And so I give him my number, and literally, I'm not kidding. Like now we've been together ever since. So,
Wow. Nice.
15 and 16 years old, and then let's see, I would have been,
How did he propose then?
yeah. So I would have been like 18, I was like 19, I think. I'm trying to think back of the year, but I used to work at this art material customer service,
Mm-hmm.
and I had gone on lunch one day. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna bring you lunch, whatever, come outside." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And he's like dressed up. I'm like, I'm like,
Something's
this
up.
is awkward. But I didn't think it was that at all. I was like, okay, it's fine. He's just like wants to be cool. And he was holding flowers, and I'm like, okay, this is odd. And he's like being so sweet with me. He's like, "I love you so much. You know, I love you." Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I knew. I'm like, something is right now. He's about to pull out the ring and like goes on his knee. And I literally could not. I was like, stop, stop. Like, I kept telling him to stop. Nothing else could come to my head. And so he asked me, I'm like, of course, yes. And then I look over, and his brother is in the trunk of his car. It's like it can open and someone can sit in it, and it's got the windshield, and he's recording the entire thing.
Uh-huh.
So it was like, he like opens the trunk, he's there recording it, and I'm like, this is unreal. So yeah, little like 19-year-old me, you know, I'm like, of course I'll marry you. Like we knew the world, you know.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it was really fun. It was, oh my gosh. I love looking back on the video, obviously. So
That is so cool. What a great memory. Yeah, you married a romantic. That's nice.
I know. I'm like, can you bring back that romance?
Well, hopefully this conversation today sparks inspiration for a lot of couples to create more romance in their relationships too. Now,
Of course.
so you're a photographer. How'd you get into photography, specifically boudoir photography?
And I've always loved taking photos. I just never owned a camera.
Uh-huh.
It was 2020, go figure. And I was working from home, my two little girls I had at the time, and I was like, I'm burnt out. I don't want to do customer service anymore. Like, it was just too much. And then I think like a couple months after that, I was being a stay-at-home mom, and then that was too much. I was like, I got to have something, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I told my husband, I was like, what if I just like bought a camera and just started taking photos? I didn't get right into boudoir at the time.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm not just going to start taking pictures of women, you know? And that's what I did. I bought a camera, a little starter camera kit, and I started taking photos like families and stuff. And then I had posted on a couple of like Facebook groups, like, hey, I've heard about boudoir photography, and like I had done sessions for myself. Would anyone like basically be a model for me, you know? And it kind of took off from there. Like, I really just started getting, I got like 2 or 3 models, did like super cheap, like dirt cheap sessions.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, you know, here's a session. I'll edit the photos. And then, yeah, so here we are.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. It was so fun.
So rewind a bit. Tell me about your first
Yeah.
boudoir session you did for yourself.
Yeah. So I don't know if I like saw it on Instagram or something, but I was like, hey, this looks pretty neat, you know, for my husband. And so I had found a boudoir photographer in the area, and she emailed me all these like questions, like, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with in your body? What do you like? What's the vibe you're going for? What kind of music do you like? Like a get to know me basically in an intimate level.
Uh-huh.
And I booked the session with her. was super nervous.
Yeah. I was going to ask.
Understandably. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like understandably, I was like, this is gonna be weird. But yeah, so I got to the session and immediately it was like she already knew I was gonna come into it that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
she was prepared. I mean, not every photographer offers champagne. I actually usually don't at my sessions either, but she did have champagne at hers.
Uh-huh.
And so we made like a mimosa, so it wasn't like I was drunk or anything. Like we had the music playing that I had recommended, and she just really set the mood. I felt super like sexy and intimate, and I loved it. This is amazing. Yeah, so I actually ended up doing 2 more later on down the road after that.
Great. How did
Yeah.
you feel when you first looked at the photos that she took of you?
Obsessed. I mean, like, all of us are our own worst critics. So,
Oh,
of
yeah.
course, I think that I probably looked at them and, like, nitpicked a little bit about myself,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing in comparison into, like, how they actually made me feel as a woman, you know?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, it was really just incredible.
And I've heard you say before, like, you just felt so empowered. Like, tell
Yes.
me more about this empowerment that you feel. And it's not just you. A lot of
Yeah.
women have told me what they
Yeah.
feel from it.
So to me, and as a woman specifically, I think that we tend to like really downgrade ourselves and see the worst in ourselves and compare ourselves to others. And, we always see what other people have and what we don't have, blah, blah, blah. So I think being captured in that sort of light and having somebody build my confidence up during the session really opened my eyes to like self-love and wow, like I am different than other people because God made me this way. And, my husband loves me the way I am. And I just literally empowered and beautiful are probably the 2 best words that I would describe. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Oh, the best.
That is so great. So fast forward again. So
Yeah.
you start doing some sessions for other people. It
Yeah.
starts spreading a little bit. Can you tell me any stories of clients, maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 stories of working with
Yeah.
clients and what their experience was like and things like that?
Yeah, so I was thinking of 2, actually. One of them is, she's now a close friend of mine, but I didn't obviously always know her. It was also early on when I was like starting out photography. I wanted to get into like engagement sessions. So her and I shot her engagement session. It didn't go great. I'm like, I'm a newbie. We got to redo this. So we ended up redoing it and it was so much better, blah, blah, blah. Later on down the road, like probably a year later, she contacted me again and was like, hey, I really want to do a boudoir session for my fiance, but I'm super nervous about it. Like every other woman is.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, like I would love to shoot it. Like I know you, we have a good rapport. And so we scheduled it. We like rented out this studio basically. And she was nervous. Like you can always tell, or I can tell obviously as a photographer when you go into a boudoir session because they're like timid in their posing and, they're a little bit more like, I don't want you looking at me. She was exactly that. And literally we think we did like an hour-long session. By the end of the session, she was like, I am on fire right now. I am so ready to see these pictures. She loved them, side note, which was great. But just to like witness the same thing that I got to feel for myself, like I was able to give that to somebody else too. It was amazing. And then I had another girl that I actually flew out to Illinois to shoot her boudoir session, which was so cool. That's where I'm from. And same way with her, like she was super nervous and timid and like, I don't know if I want to like be in front of you. So at the end of a session, same thing, like she loved it and she was like, hey, if it's okay, like I just want to keep these private. I don't want you to like share them to social media, which totally great. Some people do, some people don't. And I think it was like, I don't know, maybe a week or 2 after I delivered her gallery, she contacted me and she was like, I love the photos so much. Like they are so great. go ahead and share. I love them. I love how they make me feel. And it was like, okay.
Whoa.
Like, I thought you were going to keep them all private. And so it was neat to have her change her whole viewpoint of like, again, nothing wrong with people wanting them to stay private, that kind of thing. But to have her have that switch, it was like, yay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me more about, so both of the stories, they're both really nervous and like kind of closed up and a little bit more hidden. And then towards the end, they just feel like a boss, right? They're like,
yeah, like they're like, I am this woman.
Okay, somewhere in there's this 5-second moment, I'm assuming, when just everything changes for them.
Yeah.
Can you describe what that moment is and what's that like?
Honestly, if I had to pinpoint it halfway through the session is a good measurement. By that time, we've gotten into some posing. We've gotten into what I can see that their strong points are in posing, what I can see like they really love about themselves. And then another huge thing for me is music. Like, you gotta have the music. And then once they start, it's like a few songs in, they're like, okay, this is my playlist. I'm feeling it. Like, at this point, you've already seen me. Here I am,
Gotcha.
So halfway through. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That makes sense. It's like, all right, I've done this a little bit and it's not like, that bad.
Yes.
And this is good. So do you tend to save your best poses or your best outfits for the second half then?
I really get a feel for each person because some people are like, I want to start with, I just want to go full force, like start with my sexiest outfit first, get it out of the way. So yeah, it really just depends on the person.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. Now, besides being really nervous, being in front of someone that you really don't know so well, undressed and getting your photos taken. That sounds really scary when I say it that way, huh?
I know. And like, that's why I said it's so normal for like women to feel that way.
I would think, I don't know, maybe some men, I don't know, if it was me.
Like, no thanks.
But yes, besides that, what are also some common objections you run into? Like, what do people have about this?
I mean, it kind of goes along, they're kind of hand in hand a little bit, but fear of judgment. I mean, everybody is self-conscious, whether they admit that or not, in one way or another. So fear that, even though they hired the photographer that they did, they think that they're going to judge them or something like that.
Oh, I see. Because it can be easy to have that thought, like, this photographer has seen a lot of women. How do I stack or how do I compare to the other women she's seen or whatever?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And honestly, another big one to me, because I've heard it so many times, is I want to wait until blank. Like, I want to wait until I lose 20 pounds or I have no acne or like I know how to do my makeup better. You name it. That is so common, especially weight. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, like that is women's number one like hesitancy with doing boudoir.
Yes.
Yeah. So that would be a big one. And then also just not being confident enough. Like you just don't have enough self-love sometimes. And you're like, that's going to show in my photos. And I'm not going to be able to love myself even after the photos. And, just being scared.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about feelings of weight. Any suggestions you have for women maybe listening to this that kind of are nodding their head right now? Yeah, that's me. I want to wait until I lose the 20 pounds or lose the acne or know how to do my makeup better. What advice would you give them?
The easiest advice that I could give is don't wait. And I know that's so cliche to say, but really like at what point are you waiting for is my question always. Like we'll use the example, I want to lose 20 pounds. Say you lose the 20 pounds. You don't know that you're going to feel any different mentally or like emotionally or physically or anything at that loss of 20 pounds. And also on the flip side of that too, like we are literally not promised that. So we're not promised that
You'll be
obviously day
happier
by
or
day.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
We're not promised day by day, and we're not promised that you're going to be satisfied with losing the 20 pounds either. So I think that, again, even though I have a little bit of a biased view, I think we just need to take our bodies in for who they are exactly right now and love ourselves for who we are right now and how God made us.
That's right. And we'll get into that a little more in a moment. But
Yeah.
isn't the point of the photography session is it's like this is me, who I
Yes.
am right now, today,
Exactly.
and to celebrate the now,
And then
not
now,
the
and like,
past or the future.
and
Right.
yes, like you are beautiful and you are sexy and you can be intimate and empowered and all the things right now. Like, not yesterday, not tomorrow, so,
Yeah.
like whether you're doing it for yourself, whether you're doing it for your husband or spouse or whatever, live in the now.
That's right. That reminds me of something I saw. Leonard Nimoy, he was a famous actor. He played Spock in the old original Star Trek way back in the day. He's also, in his later life, got into photography, and he published a book of nudes that he had photographed of all you'd say, very overweight, very heavy-set women. And there's like 15 photos or so in the collection. They're online. You can find them. And and he's just highlighting the beauty that's in the really large women. And
I mean,
there's beauty.
yes.
You look at the photos and like, these are beautiful women. And
yes,
they're fantastic.
because it's not like, and it's not about the size. Like, there are literally super, super like toothpick skinny people, women. There are normal size, whatever normal is to the right, or to like each woman, normal size women. There's heavier set women. Like, we are literally all different. If we were all the same, then it would be boring. So I think just like remembering to highlight that about yourself and really bring that out about yourself is so important.
And there's like stretch marks, and I've had babies, so my breasts aren't the same shape as they used to be, and the list can go on, but
always
you can, if you want to, celebrate the fact that I had children. This is kind of who I am, and you can find the beauty in the stretch marks because of the meaning that's behind that too. Like, you don't always have to hide that.
And I think that that's where Boudoir really tries to showcase what it stands for, is like the differences in people and like showcasing all exactly how you said, like stretch marks or beauty marks, or, I mean, everybody's got something, so you might as well just live with who you are and what you've got and love yourself.
Right. And to be practical, a good boudoir photographer is not going to zoom in on the parts of your body you're a little insecure on. They're going to highlight the best parts of you and celebrate that. So,
yes. And I think that's important. Like, be mindful of who you're, hiring, and express that to who you're hiring too. So.
Right. And you can pose in a certain way and camera angles, whatever, to showcase the best parts of you for all that. Tell me more about self-love. People really struggle with liking themselves. And this is universal. This is what I see in my marriage coaching over and over and over again. Men and women struggle to really like themselves and have peace with themselves. How do you help people, or what advice do you have for people that are struggling with that as their major objection for getting boudoir photography?
That's hard. I think that that's also kind of a client by client or woman by woman basis too, because it really depends on what parts of self-love that they're struggling with, right? So if I'll use myself as an example, I mean, I think all women struggle with self-love at one point or another in their life. For me, it would be like social media, or this unrealistic perfectionist standard of like what women are supposed to look like or how sexy they're supposed to be. If that were like a client of mine's same viewpoint, then I would just really try to like bring them to reality of social media is not always real, and you can't always believe what you see, and you have to like hone in on who you are. And that can be a little bit tricky just depending on the circumstances and each like client's viewpoint.
Great.
Yeah.
Part of boudoir photography is there's a lot of nudity, and as a
Yeah.
culture, I think we fear nudity a lot. Like, it's in America. Well, what I mean is it's very different here than compared to like living in Italy, for example, where we have sculptures of Michelangelo's David, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
little different in
I mean, it's
America.
like right at you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But it's not done in a very pornographic way. It's done to
Sure.
celebrate the body as the ultimate of God's creation. This is my interpretation of the Renaissance movement, was to show that we can achieve, or we can get closer to God by celebrating our embodied selves. Like, our
Yeah.
bodies are important, bodies are beautiful, and this is how we get closer to God, through our bodies.
Yes.
Now, what are your thoughts on the whole idea of like, because boudoir photography, isn't necessarily supposed to be pornographic. I mean, it can be very sensual, but
Sure.
it's not there to gratify. It's really there to celebrate this
The beauty
female
of each
figure,
woman. Yeah.
the beauty.
Um,
Yes. How can you talk more on that?
so I will say right off the bat, as a Christian woman, I am conflicted with boudoir and also boudoir photography because that exact reason. Culture today and society today is very sexual. Like, I mean, everything is
Yes.
about sex and love, like all the things, right?
Hmm.
So,
I mean, even this podcast, right?
yeah, I mean, this podcast alone, it does make it a little bit tricky to know, like, the spectrum. I also think that kind of goes on a basis by basis case, right? So
Hmm.
some photographers that shoot boudoir photography are not looking to embody women as necessarily beauty, but more as like an object. So
I
like
see. Hmm.
porn and, things like that. I mean, that's treating them as an object and like what they have to offer people around them.
Hmm.
Whereas like to me, boudoir is really showcasing each woman for who they are and how God designed them to be. And in an intimate way. I mean, I think women desire to feel sexy. I think they desire to really be in tune with their bodies and like loving themselves that way. So I mean there's a hard line. There is. It does get tricky with like Christianity and social media and all the things.
I
Yeah.
like that you highlight you're going to have a spectrum, right? Pick any topic and you're going to find a spectrum within that too. So
Yeah.
that's good to talk about. So it
Yeah.
really is up to the individual to decide like what is my purpose in this, and
Right.
what am I
What
you
am I
look at the fruit,
searching to
right?
like get out of it, and
Yes.
like what am I searching to showcase? Because obviously, like I said, I mean there's a really hardcore spectrum of like pornography and not great things. I mean, obviously. And there's really such an intimate level of like capturing your body for what it is. So,
Got it.
yeah.
Great. So I want to talk about DIY boudoir photography
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Love it.
My wife and I recently did a DIY boudoir photo shoot, and I'm an
Yes.
amateur photographer, but
Okay,
man,
okay.
was that a empowering, very intimate, very meaningful experience for my wife and I. And
Yeah.
I just want to know, what tips do you have to make DIY photos even better? What things should we
Absolutely.
think about?
So, number one, have fun. I mean, that is like, to me, that is probably the most important. Like, you really just have to let yourself have fun. Let all the whatever you think in your head, let all of that go. And just find ways to if you're doing it by yourself, find ways to relax yourself, or if you're doing it with your spouse, same kind of idea. But like music, if you like to have a drink, then maybe have a drink. Put makeup on if that's who you however you feel most beautiful, whenever you feel most sexy, like whatever scenario that's in, put yourself in that scenario and then get out your phone or your camera, whatever you're using. I mean, there's literally every phone has a self timer now, right? So you just put on your timer, get your phone on a tripod, and really, number one was have fun. And number two would be like experimenting. Like, if you haven't gotten to the point of being able to be in front of another photographer and you're just by yourself right now, then that is prime time. Like, I can pose however I want to. No one's looking at me. Like, I can see how I like to pose. I can see what parts of me I don't like. Like, there's so many options. And like, Pinterest is your best friend. Pinterest and TikTok, obviously. We're in the TikTok era. But just really like scope out like how people are posed in other photos and see if you like that on you, you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you can even get, it's like for $10 or less on Amazon, a little Bluetooth remote, shutter. Or if you have an iWatch, a lot of watches have like a remote Bluetooth, shutter option for
just get a little
photos,
clicker.
So.
You don't even need to press the button on the on the phone or on the camera.
Right. And then like run into position, like hold yourself for 10 seconds. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's the best part. I mean, you're experimenting, you're having fun. It kind of allows you to get to know yourself a little bit more too. So, yeah.
Great. How about tips on like what to wear? What advice do you give people?
First of all, I always recommend something that they either feel sexiest in or most comfortable in, because that can be so broad. Some women, like, I just want to wear a sexy pajama outfit. Not like, Christmas pajamas, but something that's like, something that's like a little bit fitting to them that they just feel sexy in, right? So stick with what you are comfortable with. And then the other part of me is like, go out of your comfort zone and pick something that you really love, but you're nervous to wear. Because, I mean, how are you going to know if you like it if you don't step out of the box a little bit,
Yeah.
Might as well doll yourself up.
Right. As you take a photo and you look at yourself right away, anything to spot in there that are the telltale signs of I'm really being nervous or closed up right here?
Things like body language are something that I always notice. So like super tense shoulders, or like you can tell that you look stiff as a board. I mean, things that like show, like covering yourself. Exactly. Covering yourself. Maybe like not showing your face, if that's something that you're like hesitant to do, is show your face in the photos. Whatever your like insecurity is, I would recommend like just exploring, going out of that boundary that you've set for yourself and relax. Like that is number one key, is just relax your body and you'll see such a difference. Shoulders are a big one. Like if you're like this in your photos, I mean, you're going to look like a football player. Like you're going to have those broad shoulders, and just relax them. Yeah.
Good. So how about positioning tips? You talked about Pinterest is a good place possibly to go and look for that. But can you just describe maybe 3 or 4 common positions that
absolutely
get the ball rolling or the imagination going?
My very first prompt in almost every single boudoir session is on the bed. Like 9 times out of 10, wherever I'm shooting, it's usually in a studio, obviously. They have some sort of bed or couch. And I always start there because people are most comfortable when they're in their bed or like a couch, whatever, and most intimate 9 times out of 10 in the bed. So I really like people to start off there and find, like, I really just tell them, get on the bed and put yourself in a position that you would find yourself in if it were like you and your partner. Or if it's for yourself, then however you feel sexy on the bed, right? The bed is a big one. For some reason, to me, I'm drawn to walls. Like, how can you accentuate your curves or your body against a wall? Like, elongate yourself, elongate your arms, elongate your legs, like arch your back. There's so many posing prompts that you can do in one, like either bed or the wall. There's so many things. So yeah, I just kind of like take whatever room I'm in and move around the room, like get on the floor. Because we just do it all, right?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about using a chair or sitting on a stool or things like that?
Yeah, because, and again, every photographer is going to be a little bit different on what they like, what they don't like. Me, I do like using props like that. The chair, it can be so sensual, like strapping your legs over, you know, even just sitting back and just getting that back view of you, maybe like your legs are apart, something like that. That would be sexy if you saw yourself like that, or if your partner saw you like that. Props. Another good thing to do is like bring something that's of significance. Say it's your partner, like a jersey that they really like. Wearing their jersey in the photos, you're like, okay, I'm bomb right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I like that idea. I see a lot of photographers show black and white and color. What's the significance of that? And is there a tip in that for people?
I like both, obviously. I mean, it's not very likely that I'm going to deliver a gallery of just like black and whites. So color is really just to showcase that moment exactly how it is. Or if it's edited, I mean, very similar to how it is. And to me, black and white is to capture emotion and a little bit more of the candidness of the photo. So you don't always get the same feel on a photo when it's in color versus black and white.
I like that.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on how couples can use boudoir photography to build a stronger intimate connection in their marriages?
To me, intimacy and like passion go hand in hand with boudoir. So when you're going to like book a boudoir session, obviously you can do boudoir for yourself, but this is for the sake of like talking about relationships and boudoir. I mean, you're going into a session doing it for your partner because you want that like sex appeal. You want that intimacy between the two of you, and you want to be seen in a different light. So I think that it just provides more passion for your marriage, more intimacy for your marriage, and you've got something right there, your body captured, that can really like play a role in maybe like bedroom time or like sex. I mean, literally sex. And just the beauty behind it.
What about the empowering side? Like, is there any value in like, I did these photos, I feel so empowered. I'm actually like, it's like that second lit client that you told about, how 2 weeks later she called back saying, I actually like these a lot. You're welcome to use this on your portfolio. Like, it's so empowering. Now, next time you're, in that situation with your spouse, you're like, holy cow, I think you just feel
hotness. Yes. I think you just like have this newfound sense of self and newfound sense of like intimacy with yourself and with your partner, because most likely you took the photos, you got your gallery, you showed your partner, and they're in love with them, right? Like, they're not going to be like, oh, these suck. They're going to love them.
No.
Like, it's going to spark that, like, little bit of drive that the two of you share together. And you're going to see yourself in a whole other light and be able to feel sexy during sex.
That is so good. This has been such a great episode, Sierra. You're so wise and you have a lot of great ideas. And I'm sure everyone listening to this is going to, find something that they want to incorporate to elevate their marriages. But before we end, I want to hear from you. Do you have any black belt sex tips? Advice you'd give couples that are going, things are good and they're ready to take their sex life to the next level?
For me, it really is like experimenting, like stepping out of your comfort zone. That was so hard for me. And like, not my husband, like that's not hard for him. He's like, let's just do, whatever.
Okay.
It was really hard for me. I was hesitant, but like, I mean, things like toys, things like role playing, things like just that are definitely not easy to like just do for some people like me. Don't be scared. Like, don't be scared to like explore with your partner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or you might still be scared, but it's have courage. Right?
That would definitely be a good piece of advice.
The difference between courage and confidence is that confidence feels good.
True.
It's the same action. It's just
Yes.
you don't feel good in the moment, but that's
Yes.
real courage, right? But afterwards,
Yes.
you're like, hey, that actually wasn't that bad. I kind
Oh
of
my
like that.
gosh. I'm telling you, like experimenting and exploring will totally like transform your marriage sex wise.
That is so good.
It really will.
Great.
Yeah.
Where can people go to learn more about your work or maybe even book you for a photo session?
Yeah. So I use social media, Instagram, Facebook a little bit, but mostly Instagram. So it's just Sierra Beltran Photography on there. And then same for my website. If they wanted to go check that out, it is sierrabeltranphotography.com. So pretty simple and to the
Very
point.
good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again for listening to this episode. Now, if you're like most people that I talk to, the idea of doing something extravagant with boudoir photography sounds really scary. You got to find a photographer, you got to get ready and prep for it. And it might not be something that's in the cards right now. Well, if you want a great DIY approach that will really help you get settled, give you ideas for positioning, give you props, I highly recommend you click on the link in the show notes. It's this box that I've partnered with Every Love Intimates. Now, Every Love Intimates is a lingerie brand that adds date night elements to the lingerie that you order. So, this special curated box that we've built together is for boudoir photography DIY at home. It has everything you need. It has lots of great props and lots of really good suggestions and ideas to make it comfortable and easy to do at home. Go check it out at everyloveintimates.com or click on the link in the show notes below. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in accelerating growth in your marriage, either sexually, emotionally, or spiritually, I want to invite you to work with me in my affordable coaching program called Next Level. More information about Next Level and my fun and sexy apps for couples are available at getyourmarriageon.com. Please also don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single episode. And be sure to tell your married friends. I promise, they will thank you for life. Now go get your marriage on.